What is going on, everyone? In this video today, I'm going to be unboxing my $50 eBay Optiplex, and I plan on making this machine a multi-part series. And in today's episode, I'm just going to be doing the unboxing, going over the specs, and probably tearing down the machine a bit, seeing what it's got in it, and possibly replacing the thermal paste. But in the future, I plan on doing some more in-depth videos about, like, say, installing OSs, the different kinds of OSs you can install in here, how you could use this as a home server, what kind of games you could run on this since it's such old hardware now for 50 bucks, and just stuff like that. And obviously, if you guys want to see anything, just leave a comment down below and I'll do my best to read through most of those. But hopping into the unboxing here, I may have already opened this earlier, so I kind of just threw some tape on it, but it still has everything that it came with in here. And I kind of just wanted to show you guys how it really came. So we can just go ahead and rip this open. And the person that sent this actually included a lot of nice packaging, so thank you to them. And they even included this nice bubble wrap here to keep the thing really in place so that it didn't get too destroyed during shipping, which thankfully it didn't really. And they even included a nice DisplayPort cable, which will be nice if you're using this with a newer monitor. But they did not include a power cable, but that's fine, so you can get them for like 50 cents on Amazon if you need. And as you can see, they also included some other bubble wrap stuff, which is good. And yeah, it's just the machine after that. And some more bubble wrap. And as you can see here, the machine came in pretty nice condition. The only things I've noticed so far is it looks like either this has been dropped or something was dropped on the top here, because this is a little like pushed in, but that's fine. And then I also noticed the disk drive kind of just does its own thing, so you can just kind of push it in if you want, and then it doesn't really come back out, but who cares? I'll probably take the disk drive out anyway and just glue this front plate here to the front, because I honestly don't need a disk drive anymore. And looking at the back I/O, and as you can see here, it does include integrated graphics, which is nice because I believe the CPU is a i3-4160, which does include integrated graphics. And it has a display out. You got good old VGA. You got 4 USB 2.0 ports. You got 2 USB 3.0 ports, which will be nice for like USB drives or high-speed devices. You have your basic audio. You got your, I'm guessing, gigabit LAN. Oh, and it does look like it includes some kind of integrated graphics card, which we will be able to get to in a second. And you just got your standard Dell power supply. And it looks like on the top they actually included the specs, which is quite nice. As you can see, I was right about the i3-4160. You got, it came with the max 8 gigs of 1600 megahertz RAM, which is nice. That is DDR3, but that's no big deal. And some kind of quadro 410 half gig card, which that's alright for display out, but if you want to play any games or do any hardware encoding or anything like that, you're definitely going to want to upgrade the graphics card. And it looks like it also included a drive, which is nice. Usually you don't get a drive with these $50 machines, but since it's a hard drive, this is going to be pretty slow boot times, so you're definitely going to upgrade to, like, say, a $20 250 gig SSD. That'll just make your life a lot better, and then you can just use the hard drive as like a second, say, storage drive. And yeah, there isn't a whole lot else to the outside, so why don't we hop into the inside. And as you can see here, this is just secured on with a few thumb screws. This looks like they're already loose, so we go ahead and screw those off. Go ahead and rip that off. Then this just literally pops right off. Easy to get into. And we can see what we're dealing with here for internals. And upon first inspection, I can see we have a nice Dell power supply, which I'm not surprised. Not too many power supplies come in this size here. We've got some kind of Nvidia card, which I'm curious to test later. We've got our disk drive, which is actually floating in the machine. Not too sure about that. Might as well just take it out anyway. I'm not really going to need it. That just pops out. And I'm not quite sure how this secures, honestly. I've never worked with a Optiplex SFF before. So I'm going to go ahead and throw that to the side. We don't really need that. And it looks like underneath that we have our 500 gig hard drive, and that looks to be just your standard 500 gig WD, and it looks like this is from 2012, so this is an older drive, but we'll go ahead and run some tests on that. And honestly, it's not a huge deal because this is just going to be a secondary storage drive, not our main boot drive. And I'm going to go ahead and start disassembling this a little bit just to see what the motherboard's looking like. We can start off with the graphics card here. And I believe this is just going to pop right out. It looks like you just kind of pull this here. Yep. It's a nice toolless install. And there is a little tab back here. You just push that in, and then this card will pull right out. Yeah, obviously a fairly low powered card. You don't have your dedicated power or anything, but this card should be fine for display out, like I said, and it's just an older quadro card. You got your display port, and you even have an older DVI if you, say, have an older monitor. Next up, we've got our drive here, and it looks like that's already hanging. And honestly, I'm not quite sure how this comes out. I'm going to go ahead and remove the SATA power and the SATA cables. And I'm guessing, oh, they got a little slider here. It looks like you just move that to the unlocked, and you should just be able to pop that out. There we go. And this is another one of Dell's toolless installs, which is nice. You can literally just pop the hard drive right out. And it looks like if we wanted to take this out of the case, these things literally just pop right out, which is nice and easy. And we've also got our hard drive case here. And it looks like there's some kind of plastic around the CPU fan, which I'm guessing just pulls right out with these tabs. Honestly, not sure what this is for. It might be for keeping the airflow in the right direction. And almost lastly, we have our RAM here, which I'm guessing is just 2x4 gigs. Which is going to just be our basic DDR3. And lastly, we might as well go ahead and check the thermal paste. So I'm going to go ahead and remove the CPU cooler, which is very easy to do. All you have to do is remove these 4 Phillips head screws in a X pattern. And there we go, your CPU cooler is loose, and before you rip it out of the case, you want to make sure you undo the connector here. It should just pop right out, honestly. There we go. And as you can see, that's just a nice 4-pin connector. And it looks like the thermal paste has hardened a little bit. I mean, it wouldn't be too bad, but it's always a good idea to replace it when you buy a used PC, because having good thermal performance probably will enhance your overall performance of the machine a little bit, and you don't want your CPU or your other components overheating. So it's very easy to remove this. I usually just use a paper towel and kind of scrub away at it until it comes off. So it looks clean like that, and then you're going to want to make sure you also clean your CPU off, but be careful you don't push down too hard on it. And here we have our Relic i3-4160. But yeah, it's all nice and clean now. We can go ahead and apply some new thermal paste, which usually would come in a tube, but I just have a thermal paste pack here that came with one of my CPU coolers. And all you want to do is just drop a little bit of it onto the CPU. Or in my case, I'm just going to use the packet. And with most cases, the more the merrier is better, but here you only want to use about this much CPU paste, because overloading it might actually prevent the CPU from receiving good thermal conduction, so you do definitely want to avoid that. And now you're just going to want to go ahead and match up your CPU cooler back the way where the wire is facing the port. And you're just going to go ahead and put it down evenly so that your CPU paste spreads evenly. And this next step is very important. You want to make sure that you install the CPU cooler back in an X pattern. And now we can go ahead and reassemble our PC here. So we'll start with the RAM. Make sure you just line up these DIMM slot lines here with the ones on the actual motherboard. As you can see, the shorter side is on the top, so I'm going to line up the top of the RAM with that, and you just want to put it in the side, and then push down each side at a time, and do the same for the other piece. Line them up, press down, and press down at the top as well. Next, you're going to want to make sure your CPU cooler is plugged back in. And to do that, just line up the 4 pins and the header and connect that on in. And next, we can go ahead and put this black plastic shroud back on. I'm not quite sure what this does yet, but once I do some more research on it, I'm probably going to end up taking it off because I don't really think it's that necessary. And now we can go ahead and throw our GPU back in here. You just want to throw that back into the PCIe slot. And it's just going to click right into place. And on the side here, you're just going to want to bring this piece back up and then push it down until it clicks. And your GPU should be secured. Now we can go ahead and reinstall the hard drive back into the shroud here. And it looks like it just slides right in, like so. And you're going to want to make sure you move all the cables out of the way, but it should just pop right back into place up here. And then it clicks down here. And then there is this blue lever here, and on it you will see there's an unlock and a lock button. You're going to want to make sure you slide this to the lock's position, which will be to the right. And now the hard drive is in there securely. And you're just going to want to go ahead and plug the SATA connection into the hard drive here. And you're going to want to plug one of the SATA cables into that. I'm going to go ahead and use the blue one, but honestly does not matter. And as you can see, I do have these two extra cables here that originally went to the disk drive, but since I'm not putting that back in there for now because it was just flopping around my machine, I'm just going to leave these hanging. So if you want, you can just tuck them in kind of back with all the other cables and they will stay out of your way. And now that we've put the machine back together, we can go ahead and throw the side panel back on. And since my machine's a little warped on the top, it's going to be a little difficult to get this back on, but normally it would just kind of slide right into place for you guys who don't have damaged machines. And you're just going to want to go ahead and find the thumb screws on the sides and twist those into place. And if they don't thread the first time, just go ahead and readjust your cover so that they line up, and they should just thread right in. If you're having difficulty, don't keep twisting them because you'll probably strip your sockets. And just like that, our machine is back together. And since the user kindly provided a password for the Windows login, I'm going to be testing the Windows install off of the hard drive. But within one of the next videos about this machine, I'm probably going to be throwing my SSD in here just because it already has some software on it for testing. And it's going to be a lot faster than that hard drive. So I guess it's now time to see if the machine boots. And now the time you all have been waiting for, we can go ahead and test the machine. And with that, we just need a power cable. So like I said, you can pick up for super cheap. Looks like it's showing a sign of life. I heard it turn on for a moment. And we're going to go ahead and test the included display cable. It honestly looks brand new, so I do appreciate the eBay seller for including this. And we're obviously going to want to use the display port on our graphics card. Just like that. And then you just want to plug that in the back of your monitor. And lastly, I'm going to go ahead and plug in my keyboard and mouse. And I plugged my keyboard into the front ports to make sure those work. But now we can go ahead and fire up the machine and see what happens. Looks like it's firing up just fine. See, my keyboard's lit up, which is a great sign. Computer's running good, and we have a boot screen. Alrighty. It's a great start. So it looks like I didn't kill it ripping it apart, which is always nice. And it looks like Windows is already installed, so we can go ahead and try to boot into that. And as you can see, this is where an SSD would come in very helpful. You wouldn't be waiting 50 million hours for your hard drive to boot. First we'll check the about and make sure everything is showing up in there properly. Man, I forgot how slow hard drives were. This is atrocious. Any second now. And as you can see our Intel i3 is showing up there just fine. Our 8 gigs are there. And we'll go ahead and check in folders, I'm used to Mac, to make sure that is all here. We've got our 500 gig drive there working just fine. It's not that the hard drive's bad, it's a spinning disk, and there's nothing worse than spinning disks in Windows 10. So I do plan on upgrading this in the next part of my video. So make sure to stay tuned, and if you enjoyed today's video, feel free to follow along. Thank you for watching.